you know the work of Ivan Pavlov, Pavlov's dogs, classical conditioning? Yeah? Okay. So in the mid-1960s in the University of Pennsylvania, they were doing some research that was to extend Pavlov's research. And, Pavlov would ring a bell and they would feed the dogs, they would salivate. So this is not as nice as that. They would sound a tone and then they would shock the dogs. And the dogs would be in a crate and they couldn't escape. And the thought of this, they wouldn't be able to get away with those experiments today, obviously, but this is the 1960s. So the thought behind this is when we put these dogs into a different environment, they'll hear the tone and they'll just jump out because they'll know what's coming, right? Classical conditioning, behaviorism, Skinner, right? But what they found actually was very surprising. What happened was when these dogs who had been in these crates that they couldn't escape heard this tone, they just laid down on the floor and whimpered. They didn't try to escape, even though they could very easily. They had learned that they could not get out. And so this young graduate student named Martin Seligman noticed what was going on, and he said, let's try a different experiment. So they had the dogs that had been conditioned in that way. Can't escape, you're going to get shocked no matter what. They had a second group where they had a lever that they can control with their noses to turn off the shock and escape. Like they had control over the environment. They had a third control group that didn't get any shocks. And what they noticed when they put them in these other crates that were easy to escape was the dogs that had been conditioned in the first way, same thing, they just lied down, they whimpered, but the other two jumped out. And that's significant. And that, Seligman termed that as learned helplessness, the behavior of the first group of dogs. And that has been demonstrated over and over and over again with people. People exhibit that as well. When life tells you over and over again that you have no control of your environment, you can't change things, this is a pattern that you're in, people start to feel like, why should I even try? So in those circumstances, being able to inject hope into those people's lives, it is powerful. It is powerful. And maybe some of you have been to that place personally, where you felt like, I feel hopeless right now, and why should I even try to work on this problem, or why should I even try to address this? Like, I'm not going to get anywhere with it. I think I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. I think it's kind of a universal experience, at least at times in our lives. So, but the interesting thing is, when we can inject hope, there's this a researcher named Esther Duflo, and when she conducted an intervention, she noticed that these interventions that are designed to inject hope, people started, they devoted more time to their work when they were feeling happy. They were devoting more time to their children, and so they were able to escape this poverty trap because they were mentally in a better place to deal with their circumstances. It was like the dogs that had the ability to turn off the charge, right? They could change it. And so, I mean, this is really, when we're talking about some of the most marginalized people in society, I work with an NGO called Rising Star Outreach. And Rising Star works with some of the most abject poverty that you will see. They work with the leprosy affected in southern India. And so some of you from India may know, if you have leprosy, it's really hard. It's really hard. You're sent to the colonies. You can't, people won't employ you. You're just kind of the Dalit class, right? Dalit caste. And so their hope is to go out on the street and beg. That's about all they can hope for and subsist. So Rising Star goes in and they will work with micro-grant enterprises, perpetual education loans, they have a school for the kids, all of these little things that inject hope, right? Medical help and things like that. I want to show you an example of just one small thing that, if we could show the clip, one small example of what hope can do for a person's life. This is from a PBS documentary that they did about Rising Star. Okay. So that's just one small example from thousands of examples from one NGO in one part of the world, right? There are so many things that people are doing around to generate hope, and all of you have talents, all of you have abilities, all of you can reach out and connect with people and lift and share your gifts and help people in such small ways that make a really, really big difference. So those are just a few thoughts. I mean, if some of the most abject, poor, marginalized people in the world can come out of poverty and out of despair, it really is possible. It really is possible all over the world. For us, for the people that we care about, for the populations that we serve. And the research shows that if people can just experience hope, it can transform lives. Thank you.
Thank you, speakers. Now, anybody has any questions?
I appreciate both of your stories and sharing the information you did. I guess my question would be on the faith aspect and how faith has played a role in your lives or within the NGO or the work that you do.
I would say for myself, my faith increased tremendously when my mother was sick. When I was a junior in high school and I found out that my mom was sick, it was the scariest time in my life for me. I have never been so afraid in my life, you know, that we were going to lose her, that I wouldn't have my mom. And my faith increased during that time because my mother was completely healed and she has been healed ever since. Like, she hasn't had any problems with her health since then. So for me, I would have to say that that was it for me. I just believed so much in God, and I prayed so much during that time for him to heal her, for him to allow her to stay with us and renew her life and her strength, and he did it. So I was sold. That's all I can say.
Can I ask, in terms of faith, what do you mean by faith? Because I can tell you like my thoughts, but I want to make sure I'm addressing your question. Are you talking about faith in a higher power? Are you talking about faith that good things will happen in the future, or what? Okay. Okay. So I am a person that has a very strong belief and I believe in God. And for me personally, as a therapist, I've seen addiction work, a lot of addiction work. That element of faith is super important. I also do emotional release work, and one of the things that I've noticed is that should I stand up? Sorry, maybe we can both stand up. So one of the things that I've noticed, the camera's over here now. One of the things that I've noticed is that when people go into fear, and they have fear in their lives, or they have some sort of obstacle in their life where they feel like, I can't surmount this myself, when they're in fear, they move into control to compensate. And pretty soon they're like gripping life white-knuckled, you know? And it's a challenge. It can create problems when you're trying to compensate like that and you're controlling. And the way out of that is faith, I believe. Believing that there's someone or something higher than you guiding you, and that has an interest in you succeeding, and that you can give that to them, creates a peace and a hope, right? Faith, I believe, leads to hope, that things will be okay and that things will work out, like you were talking about with your mom. Like, you can't control the outcome of a sickness, or right. But if there's some benevolent force, I believe is God, leading my life, then it will work out. The way, whatever the outcome is, I will be okay. And there's such a peace that comes with that, and then I can make more rational decisions, and I can act in ways that will be for my benefit, and better things are coming to my life because I'm acting from a place of strength rather than a place of fear. Does that answer your question?
It does. Can I follow up with
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
And I think you're very aware that within our society, we're taught rugged individualism. We're taught self-independence, autonomy, all these qualities. And to turn to faith is kind of giving up those aspects and turning, towards something that's intangible and also questionable. Depending on what community you're in or what faith or what you believe in. So I'm just wondering from your experience as Americans, how do you believe faith fits in our society?
Well, for myself personally, I didn't turn to faith. My mom raised us in it. So I have been praying ever since I can remember. She would get down on her knees with us and we would pray at night. We would go to church on Sundays. So it's not anything new for me. It's something that was instilled in me as a child. So it's really the only thing I know. So it wasn't a switch over or anything that I turned to later in life. It's something that I've always had. So. Does that give you strength in your times of like? Oh, yes.